Hello YouTube. So today I would like you to join me in the journey of learning HTTP host header attacks. Alright, so I will be recording this video in few parts. Uh, like first one will be just a basic introduction, what HTTP host header attack is. Secondly, we will be trying to look at like what are different techniques and how we can identify and exploit HTTP host headers, and in between we will be doing the labs, and our target will be to complete all the PortSwigger labs. Alright, and I will be explaining each and every details with whatever details I can collect and I can find on the internet, and I will be sharing it to you guys. Alright, so without wasting any further time, let's get into it. So now I will be taking reference to PortSwigger, so you can go here and type PortSwigger and you will be getting this website, portswigger.net. I should remind you that portswigger.net is the same website that provides you with the burp suite. So here we go, we get into PortSwigger, and this is the same company that provides you the burp suite. Okay, this is the fantastic tool. So now what they're doing is they are also providing you the free practice modules and learning modules. So you can go here and click on Web Security Academy, and then you will be on this page, and then you will have to navigate to HTTP host header attacks. Now once you are ready, and then join me and let us start together. Okay, so now what is this HTTP host header attack? So let me first give you an example, like what is the host header and like how it works. Okay, so here is a very good image over here. So here you can see there is an attacker, there's this attacker, there's this user is trying to open up application inside the website, means like this is the company or infrastructure where whatever it is, and here's the reverse proxy or any intermediary software or tool or whatever it is. So whenever the external user whenever the external user requests some pages or requests some kind of a service from this like this hosting platform or whatever it is, so it will go there and check the application, which application the user is trying to request, and then it will give the data to this user. Now what will happen if an attacker try to break using HTTP host header vulnerabilities? So let me give you a better example of understanding what actually host header is about. Okay, so this is example that I've drawn here. So what happens is, in an organization or in any mm, in any web hosting websites or web hosting portals where you can host your own websites, so what they do is they have this single IP address. Okay, they have this simple or single infrastructure in which they host multiple different websites. Like here, this is aaa.com and this is bbb.com. okay, so this is the backend components where internal different websites are being hosted. Now since these internal websites are being hosted, we have, like you would have learned in the initial phases, like each single website is assigned a different IP address. Okay, so though no two websites can have a single IP address because they will conflict and blah blah blah, everything will happen. But here question arises, like since we are right now in the current scenario using IPv4 addresses, so IPv4 addresses are quite limited. So they're like you have learned about different ranges, is A, B, C, D and all. Okay, so now the IPv4 ranges are very limited, so there are billions and billions of computers, billions and billions of websites. So how could they accommodate in such a small range? Like we are now migrating to IPv6, but IPv4 is still there. So to overcome this abundance of websites, this overwhelming number of websites being hosted on the internet, so we have to find another way. So what the researchers did, like what they are doing right now, is they are hosting multiple websites on a single IP address. That's weird but that is actually happening, and this is a very good technique. Actually, it is solving different problems. So what the organizations are doing nowadays, like they have their external facing IP address. So this intermediary I have shown here, so this all thing, this all everything here falls inside the organization. Now organization has this gate. Okay, this is like just assume this as a gate. So this gate is the external, this case is gate is assigned as an external IP address. All right, now this IP address is visible to the outside world. This is outside world. Like if you want to get into this website, like if you want to contact this company, or if you want to open this company's website, we will be only seeing this IP address. No internal network addresses are visible to the external world. Okay, so now if this company has multiple different websites, so how are we going to interact with these websites? Like this is the only IP address visible to us. So how are we going to identify, like we have to go to aaa.com or bbb.com? So what we will do is, to solve this problem, we came up with host header. Okay, now what host header actually looks like, if we go into this PortSwigger request, which I just did, I was just googling YouTube. So here you can see this is the get request, search YouTube and blah blah blah. So here you can see I'm searching this on google.com. so here the host is mentioned as google, www.google.com. Okay, so now this request will be going to this one. So here you can see whenever I did whenever you are or anyone is searching anything in their browser, so automatically the domain name is segregated and is put into the host attribute in this header, request header. Okay, and rest of the attribute, rest of the link or rest of the URL is just mentioned as the inside the get request, inside, like it is appended after the get term. So what this is actually about is like in the root directory, this is the query that has to be performed on this server. Okay, this is how we identify what our host will be. So coming back to our this page, so now what will happen is, suppose there is a device A, there is a device B. Device A wants to connect to aaa.com, like he wants to log in, or okay, so I did something incorrect. Let me just correct this thing. I have mentioned over there like login.php, but here I have mentioned something different. So I'll just copy this thing. Let me just correct it. Okay, right. So now here, this is the URL that the person will be searching in its web browser. Okay, https gallery profile image. So it is searching for an image. Now whenever this request is generated, it will automatically set aaa.com into the host attribute. Okay, and rest of the thing will be appended after this get term. Okay, so this is a method. What type of a method we are like get method or post method or options, whatever, put or delete, whatever we are going to do, this is the method. Like this is the request method. What actually are we requesting? It is a get request or a post request. Okay, so this is the get request. We are asking data from this server. So this aaa.com will be appended here in front of the host attribute. So now when this URL will be going to the DNS server, which will resolve this website, it knows that the IP address is this for this server. So bbb.com will also have the IP address of this server. Okay, so these two have the IP address, same IP address. Now this request will be going here, and in here this intermediary or reverse proxy, whatever it is, it will identify the host header attribute. Now it will check the host header attribute to identify to which different websites this request is coming to. Like it does not know if this host header is not there, so it will never know to whom this request is to be forwarded. So now it will be relying on this host attribute. So it will check this host attribute. If it is aaa.com, then this will forward this request to aaa.com, and the page will be going, this page will be coming back to your device, and this image will be displayed. Similarly for the device B, the device B wants to log in and it is requesting a login.php. So here bbb.com will be appended in the host attribute, and rest of the term will be appended here. Okay, so now when this will happen, this will go to the ZL server. It will again check the same IP address. It will again go here to the intermediary, and intermediary will rely totally on this host attribute to check to which internal website this request has to be forwarded. Okay, so it checks like this is bbb.com, and it will forward to bbb.com, the internal website. Now see here, you can see this is http slash 1.1. so in http 1.1 it is mandatory to hold this host attribute. If you are not giving a host attribute, then the server this nobody will understand like which website are you trying to reach to. It may be possible that DNS server may give you something, but when it reaches to this intermediary, it will not be able to identify which internal website you are trying to connect, so it will not give you an output. Okay, so now coming back to this PortSwigger, this is like introduction about this, what the host header is actually. So now coming back and following the pattern with the PortSwigger, this is what is the HTTP header. That's the same that I told you. So this one will be appended over here in the host attribute, and this request will be forwarded. Now next question is, what is the purpose of HTTP host header? Like as I told you, the purpose of this host header is to like overcome the drawbacks or the cons of IPv4 addresses. Like the addresses are being exhausted, and so we need somehow a new way so that we can host multiple websites with only just one IP address. So to resolve this issue, we have this host header. Okay, now how do we host multiple websites on a single IP address? This is the question. Then this question can be, means this issue can be resolved using virtual hosting and routing traffic via intermediary. Intermediary, as I already shown you, there will be a something like a device or something would be there. Okay, like see here you can see this could be a simple load balancer or a reverse proxy server of some kind. So okay, this setup will redirect your request to the different websites to that particular website inside the network. Alright, now virtual hosting. What is virtual hosting? You have already know, like DigitalOcean is there, and many websites are there, like Microsoft Azure web hosting is there, like Amazon web hosting is there, I guess. And if you are using the shared resources, then if you are not using dedicated resources on this cloud or third vendor, these vendor platforms, if you are sharing the resources just to cut down your cost, then what you are trying to do is you are using the same web server, and the resources are shared among different websites. So that means a physical server is being shared with the other people also. So here you can see going through the words of the PortSwigger, this could be multiple websites with a single owner, but it is also possible for websites with different owners to be hosted on a single shared platform. All right, this is less common than it used to be, but it still occurs with some cloud-based software as a service solutions. Alright, to a normal user accessing the website, a virtual host is often indistinguishable from a website being hosted on its own dedicated server. That's true. Like if I'm an end user, I would never come to know like what's the difference between a virtual hosting or a dedicated server hosting. So there is no difference as a user, but the person who is hosting their website, the website owner, they would definitely know the difference between like virtual hosting and physical dedicated servers hosting. Okay, so now these are the two solutions of how we can achieve like multiple websites on a single IP address. One is virtual hosting, another one is use of intermediary. Okay, how does the HTTP host header solve this problem? Now since multiple websites are hosted on a single IP address, now how do we reach to that particular website if there is only one IP address? Just as I show you in the image over there, like if we have to take an example, like here they have explained with a very good example. Okay, you can see here this analogy what they're trying to give is like a building which has different rooms. So if a postman, like there are hundreds of floors over there, and in hundreds of floors like thousands of rooms are there. So if a letter arrives and the postman has to give a letter to any one of the rooms, so he won't be able to know until and unless he knows the exact room number. So the address, like your street address and your building number, is the external IP address. So he reached at your building main gate. Okay, so he is over there, but he don't know which room you exactly are. So to identify the exact room, you need to give your room number. So that room number is actually the host header value. That's what they are saying in this section. Now moving on to next section, what is an HTTP host header attack? So now we know what is the host header and why we use it. Sorry. Now we will look at like what is the host header attack. So now coming to here, let's go I will go ahead and read this paragraph. So HTTP host header attack exploits vulnerable websites that handle the value of host header in an unsafe way. So now, as I told you in this image, this intermediary will check the host attribute, and depending on that and relying on that value, it will direct your traffic to either of these internal websites. Now it's the responsibility of this intermediary or this whatever it is, the load balancer or this server side, it's the responsibility of the organization who is using this intermediary to verify your host attribute value, like to properly escape it and properly perform sanitization over it and everything before forwarding it to internal networks. Like if they totally rely on here, like you saw here in this burp suit, I can change its value. I can if I send it to repeater, and I can show you, if I can do anything. Like if Google is hosting an internal network, so I can just type in here intranet underscore google.com. all right, so now if there is any host like this and user and Google is not verifying what the host I am providing it to, then it will redirect this traffic to this intranet google.com. so I will be able to get a response from this intranet google.com. so that is not good. That as a point as an organization, they never want the external user to access their internal machines, so this will create a problem. So that is exactly what um, here what we are going to see. Like that's what this host attribute, the server has to the server cannot blindly trust any values that are coming inside this host attribute. Okay, so you can see here, if the server implicitly trusts the host header and fails to validate or escape it properly, an attacker may be able to use this input to inject harmful payloads that manipulate server-side behavior. Attacks that involve injecting a payload directly into the host header are often known as host header injection attacks. So now we give a, like an attacker or an hacker give a malicious values or obfuscated values inside the host, and that will be processed, and if that is processed at the server end, then that may create a problem for the organization. Like he can craft such a payload that can extract internal data or can even like he can misuse the host header injection. Okay, so this whole exploitation and this process of using host header to attack a website is known as host header injection attack. Okay, so now we can see here, like there are 4 types of attacks mainly possible with this. The one is web cache poisoning, business logic flaws in specific functionality, routing based SSRF, and client server side vulnerabilities such as SQL injection. Okay, now how do HTTP host header vulnerabilities arise? The vulnerability arises, as I told you, that an attacker can easily modify this using tools like burp proxy, so the host attribute can be modified. Okay, even if the host header itself is handled more securely. Now if the host header is secured very carefully and every measures are taken to check or sanitize the host header, but depending on the configurations of the server that deal with the incoming request, it can be overridden by other parameters as well. So here you saw there are certain other parameters here. But some are not listed here. So if you go ahead and get to know like what are the request headers that can affect this host header, so without changing the value over here, you can indirectly use those headers which can overwrite this host header values. So we will get to know more in the coming videos, but here you just need to know like there are some attributes in this request parameters which can change or which can override this host attribute values. Okay, coming back to here, so this is how the vulnerability arises. First thing, we can change it. Second thing, even if it is sanitized and checked properly, it can be overridden by injecting other headers. Okay, sometimes website owners are unaware that these headers are supported by default, and as a result they may not be treated with the same level of scrutiny. All right, so these are the two things. And their third thing, many of these vulnerabilities arise because of insecure coding, but because of insecure configuration of one or more component in the related infrastructure. Okay, so now the thing is like coding might be very fine, it would be on the top, on the point, and nothing, no flaw is there in the coding section, but the third party like plugins or themes or whatever third party software that or tools or technologies, whatever the website is using, they, if they are using like if they are using this host header values in their processing of things, and if somehow they do not properly sanitize the inputs, then that can create a problem, because the company itself is taking care of its core website, so they have sanitizing it, they are sanitizing it before using it anywhere. Okay, they are properly scrutinizing it, but the third party tools or technologies that they are using, they might not be implementing those security measures related to this host headers, so that can also increase the chances of host header vulnerabilities. Okay, so we have covered this as well. Now moving forward, exploiting HTTP host header vulnerabilities. So this we will be doing in the next section, and how to prevent HTTP host header attacks. If I discuss this right now, you won't be getting much out of it. Like I also won't get much out of it because I have not done these labs. So we will first go ahead and perform in the sequence order. We will move in a sequence order. So we will first go ahead and do some exploiting. Like we will in the next videos or in the upcoming videos, we will go ahead with this section, the exploitation part, and meanwhile we will be doing certain labs as well. Depending on whatever things we learn from here, we will be performing labs, and once we are completed with the labs, we are comfortable with it, then we will go ahead and see like how to prevent the HTTP host header attacks. Now if you are enjoying this learning process, or if you are enjoying my company in this learning journey, do not forget to like, share and subscribe. And if you want anything to add on in the coming videos, or if you want any correction, then do let me know in the comment sections. Thank you.